This video could transform your Big Four partner interview from a rejection to an offer. I'm covering the 4 core questions that you'll almost definitely be asked, as well as a proven framework for answering behavioural and situational questions with 7 real examples, and then how to nail the any questions section at the end. And I'm showing you the mistakes that actually cause the rejections. Miss any of this and you will regret it when these exact questions come up. Tell me about yourself. It sounds simple, right? No. Answering this question in the wrong way will absolutely make your interviewer lose confidence in you from the very start. Many people think, let me just summarize my whole CV in this question, but that is not what it's asking. Please also don't give your whole life story from primary school, and don't also be so short that you just seem like you're not even interested. They're actually testing if you can communicate concisely. Do you actually understand what is relevant to this role? And can you also position yourself effectively? Luckily for you, I have a framework to answer this the right way. And look, you don't want to be here all day. It's kind of your elevator pitch. So really aim for that 60-second mark, and you definitely need to practice this. Let's split this answer into 3 parts: the present, the past, and then the future. So the present can be very brief. Where are you right now? At the University of Leeds studying economics and maths. Do you have any relevant achievements or responsibilities there? Maybe you're on track for a 2-1 average. You're the treasurer of the Bangor Society. Yes, I am talking about myself. So that's kind of all it is for the present part. Where you're studying, what you're doing, and anything right now. Just very brief, that is a bit relevant. It can just slip in there. And now the past, it's actually kind of what led you here today. What experiences have you done? What skills have you developed that kind of made you realize that actually you're interested in this type of role? Internships, part-time jobs, society involvement, they're all relevant. It's really just the transferable skills. Maybe it's through the treasurer role that you found that you really enjoy managing a budget, or perhaps then it sparked an interest in you pursuing some kind of accounting experience, something that makes the interviewer think, okay, I can really see where they're going with this. But they don't have to guess, because then the final bit is the future. That's where you can say why you're particularly interested in, say, Big Four audit, and maybe even a particular service line or industry, especially if you're interviewing for that. If you aim for a 15, 20, and 25-second split, that should give you the 60 seconds. Just really short, relevant, and concise. The Big Four, of course, it has structured training programs. Perhaps you want that ACA qualification. Don't be shy to just let that come through early on. Now, here's a list of things I don't want you to do or say. You really shouldn't have to, at this stage, say that you're hardworking, because hopefully all the experience and things that you share really comes through and shows that anyway. So tell me about yourself. Write this all down, practice it. I offer mock interviews, 1-to-1 preparation. So absolutely do prepare, and we can run through it if it helps. The link is in the description. If you're not confident or you're rambling when you're just describing who you are, it might cause concerns about client communication skills. That's why you absolutely can practice this and try to nail it. Why this particular company and why this role? There is no doubt about it. You are going to have to answer that. If you're a candidate giving the same generic answer as everyone else, you're probably out. For why this firm, if you're saying, oh, it's very prestigious, it's got a great training program, you could be saying that to any other of the Big Four firms. It really hasn't shown that you've researched that firm. There's so many things you can touch on here to really stand out and show that you've done your research. Are there any employer awards or other awards that really resonate with you that this firm has? Maybe you know someone, or you know more about the culture at that firm, and that's something that you want to mention. Maybe they're doing some great initiatives with some real social impact. It could even be the diversity and inclusion communities that they might have. Technology is also massive now, so maybe they've got some really great innovation in this space. Just make it so specific to that firm, and you need to let your interests align. And don't get me wrong, of course you can say the more generic things, that structured training program, the ACA qualification, prestigious reputation, a variety of clients where you can gain so much exposure in even different industries. That's all okay, but do make sure there are things that you are really linking back to you and your interests. Now, why the role? So I'll use the example of audit specifically. You might even get asked, what is audit? What is it that we do? You need to even understand this to be able to answer, of course, why the role. I actually have a whole video already answering this, so there's absolutely no reason why you can't smash this answer. Just focus on the overall objective of an audit. It's to provide an audit opinion that the financial statements are true and fair and free from material misstatement. You don't need to give all of those finer details and things that I have mentioned in the video, such as the risk assessment process, but it is great just to have that awareness. Again, this answer needs to be specific, research, researched and authentic. You need to link it back to you, your interests, the skills that you like, any experience that has led you to this. Maybe you've done a little bit of audit experience already and that really showed that you enjoyed it from that short experience that you had, and you definitely want to do more of it, but you don't need that experience. It's not expected at this stage. Are you someone that enjoys working in a team? There's a lot of teamwork involved in audit, so that's a reason that you really want to apply. I've got a video on the 6 reasons why you should start your career in audit, some of the more generic things that you absolutely can say, but you really need to link it back to you. Please don't say any of these. These are probably automatic red flags and straight rejections. What's your biggest weakness? Yeah, everyone's a perfectionist and works too hard. But honestly, please do not mention something that is a core requirement to do well in audit. If you're saying things like attention to detail, this role probably isn't for you. This question's more so about self-awareness, and it's kind of a coachability test. The 3-part framework do give a genuine weakness, not career ending, but maybe early on in university, you had so much going on, you were struggling with juggling everything. Set the tone for about 20 seconds with this. Then part 2, which is the bulk of the answer, so maybe 40 seconds. What have you actually done about it? So you've identified this weakness. What did you do? Maybe you developed your own system or planner that worked for you. You broke down bigger tasks into smaller, more achievable tasks. Maybe you can talk about the growth that you had as you started to implement these things. And in this, you can really say, you didn't end up missing a deadline. And then finally, in the last 15 seconds, is it still going on? Maybe you acknowledge that it is, but actually you always just take a step back and then remember these systems, and you are continuously working on it, but you feel that it's going in a real positive direction. Other examples that maybe can still work, if it's public speaking, what courses have you done since to really improve on that? Or even your Excel skills. Excel is actually really important for the role. You need to kind of be proficient at this stage. If you've been taking any, LinkedIn learning courses, that's really great to show that you've really worked on it and now you're at a much better standard. The partner's probably thinking, are you someone that will struggle in silence, or are you someone that can be a bit more proactive about it? And maybe they do want to see if you actually have any of those audit ending weaknesses. If you take all of this on board for those core questions and you practice, remember I do offer mock interview services, the link's in the description. But no doubt that you really will have impressed the partner at this stage, but it can still really go wrong. The behavioural questions can actually tell them a lot about you, especially if they're asking you things about when you've worked in a team or, had to step up into a leadership position. These are things that you'll have to do in the real day-to-day job. So you could end up saying something here that can really put them off. You might actually have done all of the right things in a past scenario, but if you're not getting this across in the right way, again, it could be a real rejection. Describe a time that you've worked in a team. So remember, it's not just what you say, but it's how you say it. So what you're saying, they're actually testing if you can work collaboratively. Do you take responsibility, or are you someone who maybe blames others? And again, it's all about that coachability. Teamwork is massive in audit. There was not a single day in my 7 years in audit that I did not work with anybody else. The partner needs to know that you are not someone who will be a nightmare working with other people or just awful to manage. Now, the framework for how you actually say it, it's the STAR method. Situation, task, action, result. The mistake most people make is talking about the situation and the task for so much of the answer that they're not actually able to get across their actions that they've taken and then the result. The partner really doesn't care about the situation in that much detail. They want to know what you did and what the result was. Try to aim for this split when you're talking through the answer. The situation is just brief context. The task, your specific responsibility, not the whole team, you. Action. What did you do? And really make sure you're mentioning that collaboration. Most candidates mess up because they're talking about we had to do this. And the question is about you. And finally, the result. If you can quantify it, that will be amazing. But if not, no worries. Just what was the outcome? And you can always end on what you learn. I've tried here now to give you a really strong example of this answer. I did use ChatGPT for this. That's not what you should be doing. That's just so you can have a real clear example. You should be working from things that you've done. Do really brainstorm this and think about all of the different examples that you could potentially use for this question. The answers less impactful are the ones where everything just went perfectly and so smoothly. There isn't really a challenge or anything to talk about. So what's great about that example is that it shows problem solving under pressure or dealing with difficult conversations. Here's some more of these common mistakes when answering these questions, and just really try not to fall into any of those traps. Instantly throwing teammates under the bus is such a red flag. If you're doing this and talking about it in the interview, no doubt you might end up doing it to a colleague on client side. Try to have 3 to 4 really good, solid examples prepared. Ideally, you want to really have different experiences that you're drawing in from. You don't just want to be talking about this same part-time job that you've had in the same situation. It's a really great time to just give the partner a full 360 picture of you. Having these 3 to 4 stories prepared in advance are so helpful as well, because sometimes they can just be reframed. A good teamwork story could perhaps be a good leadership story, problem-solving story, or even communication. Prepare for behavioural questions that relate to the skills used in audit. It's really unlikely that they're going to be asking you a question about, say, graphic design or something that's just not relevant. Now, before we move on to the situational questions, I want to talk you through my secret weapon. It's basically what I always have in the back of my mind in any interview, answering any behavioural or situational questions. And what is it? The company's values. This will really put you in that top category of candidate. Every Big Four firm has core values, and the behavioural questions, situational questions, they are testing you on this. They want to see whether you embody these values. You could actually weave this into your star answer, but only if it comes across and feels natural. So here are the core values for all of the Big Four firms. There's honestly patterns in all of them. Integrity, collaboration, impact, they're everywhere. The partners are honestly probably judging you based off of these in the back of their head. So if you've got an awareness of it and you can kind of sprinkle that into your answer, that is great. In your star answer, if the result is what it taught you, maybe for PwC, it's really reinforced what they mean about work together. It's about collective success, not heroes. Deloitte, collaborate for measurable impact. Maybe you're stepping up or out of your role because the team really needs it. KPMG is together. Everyone's working together to achieve that one goal. Then there's EY's teaming value. They all have a value around teamwork. You've taken your same answer, but just weaved it in where it's natural. You're making it really easy for the partner to just tick. You've shown teamwork, evidence, learning and growth, showed integrity perhaps. This could work for a lot of the behavioural questions. Other candidates probably aren't doing it. To be honest, at the time, I didn't do this, but I know now just how important the core values are. I've always thought about it in the back of my head, but actually if you can sprinkle it into your answer, like I said, in a very natural way, it will really help demonstrate that cultural fit, which is absolutely what they're looking for. And it shows that you research the specific firm. You're not just saying the same to any Big Four firm. Please keep those core values in mind now as we move on to the situational questions. Answering these wrong, they can blow your chances in a heartbeat. Before the examples, you first need to know the difference between a situational question and a behavioural question, because the way that you give your answer will be different. So behavioural are testing you on past experiences. Tell me a time when, give me an example of, describe a situation where. It's things that you've actually done. Situational now, those are the more hypothetical questions. What would you do if? How could you handle this? Imagine you're in this situation. Situational can be seen as harder because you do need to think on your feet with these in the interview. You can't prepare for all of them, but who knows, maybe some of these next 7 are in your interview. Behavioural though, you can really prepare in advance, so do make sure you're doing that, and we can have that mock interview together. I personally have always viewed situational questions as, in a way, common sense, but always keeping the core values in the back of my mind. I think honestly, there's about 5 things that you need to demonstrate when answering these. You absolutely need an understanding of audit independence and ethics, relationship management, escalation protocols, professional standards, and then team dynamics in high pressure environments. We've spoken about the company's core values, but you also need in the back of your mind for these situational questions, the ICAEW's code of ethics. So there's 5 principles. And if you do get this job, you're likely doing the ACA qualification with ICAEW, and you will need to know this code from the very start of your studies. Check out this playlist. I've got so much about all of the exams, but the 5 principles, and I'm just sharing this so you have the awareness so you can really see, oh, that's actually what this question's testing. It's integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and professional behaviour. The core values and the code of ethics, they need to be in the back of your mind for any of these answers. It is scary because there's no set right answer, but I am going to give you frameworks in this video to help. We're going through 7 examples. Don't skip over any of these, because if one of them that you've missed comes up and you do the exact thing I say not to, it could result in a rejection. What would you do if you discover a material error in work that's already been submitted? I want to start with the red flag answers here, actually, because hopefully it really gives you a sense of, oh, actually, okay, I should be thinking in this way and avoiding saying things like this. So here are some examples of the wrong things to say. If you're hiding things, not acting honestly, remember, integrity, it's a core value. You don't want to go against those. You really want to show that you can handle difficult situations professionally. Okay, so how do you answer this? Well, you've discovered a material error. But do we actually know how material this is? What actually is the impact? You need to understand the nature and the magnitude of that error first. That will then determine a lot of what happens next. If it's a really big issue, of course, you need to absolutely escalate that to your manager immediately. The next step is to always document everything. In audit, you need to always have a very clear audit trail. And then, of course, do follow that escalation protocol. Whatever your manager, senior manager directs you to do, that's what you need to do. Perhaps there's also actually things about this that the firm's already told you about. Perhaps now it's time for the partner to be involved, or maybe you do have to tell the client. The key is that you are just escalating appropriately and you are following the right chain of command. The last step is usually always kind of following through and learning from it. What caused the issue? Was it your fault? Someone else's? How do you prevent it from happening in the future? Whatever it is, it should help you grow professionally. Can you see how in this one question, you're able to show so many different elements of what's important in audit? So the core concept about materiality, knowing the professional protocol, immediate escalation, the audit trial requirements, so highlighting documentation, showing respect for the hierarchy and other people's expertise in these matters when things do go wrong. It also shows that you really have a learning mindset and you don't blame other people and you don't cover things up. If you're taking one thing away for answering these questions, integrity always comes first. Always escalate, always document, always prioritize quality over convenience. Audit quality is absolutely key. You can't compromise on that no matter what. A client asks you for confidential information about another client that you audit. What do? Well, here's not what you do. Pause and have a look at those. Now you're getting tested on the confidentiality obligations. Can you handle awkward situations professionally? Client relationship management, of course, and then as well the professional boundaries. If you're giving away this confidential information immediately, you're out. There really is no grey area with this. You just can't do it. The clients just ask you for this. What do? Of course, you have to react in that first step. And of course, it is politely, but professionally and firmly declining. But remember that good relationship that you want to keep, so you can redirect them to what you can help them with. Then maybe actually show them and reinforce that positivity of why it's actually a good thing that you're keeping that confidentiality. Because if you're doing it for the other client, then of course you're doing it for them as well. Then you can offer alternatives and of course what you learn. I probably then also would go and check with my manager and just make sure that I did handle this in the right way and kind of advise the right things. You just want to make sure that you haven't really missed anything here either. It's all about being firm and the delivery here, but confidentiality is absolutely a must. Now your manager's asking you to do something that you're not trained for. Here's not what to do or say. This is all about professional competence and knowing when to speak up. They're seeing that you've got that self-awareness of your own capabilities, the communication skills, being open with your seniors. It's always that willingness to learn, and then the professional standards around competence. So the right framework, they've asked you to do something. Okay, clarify. What are the expectations? What are they actually to do? Really just think about these answers in a way that would actually make sense in real life, just step by step. What's the expectations? And then you absolutely can be honest about your experience level. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I haven't done this before, because that's then also a great opportunity to find out what support from them you're able to get, or where you can do extra learning to make you better at this. So propose that plan, tell them kind of what you're thinking to do, check with them that it's on the right track, ask for supervision, clarify those check-in points, and then just follow it all through. And again, what do you learn from it? Now, these next questions, I'm going to run through more quickly because hopefully by now you're really getting it and you're seeing what the right things are to say and what you really shouldn't be saying. And this isn't just about interview answers, by the way. This is actually how you should be acting in your whole professional career. So really do always keep this in your mind and take it forward. A team member isn't pulling their weight. What are you going to do? You're not going to do those things. Pause again, have a look. Understand the situation, have that conversation with them directly, privately. You can offer the support if you really can give that, and just set any expectations. But, of course, your team member depends, of course, what grade they are. You might really need to escalate if it's necessary. Again, always understand their situations and just focus on the solution. It is never about blaming other people. Oh, but what if they react like this? What if they do this? Remember, you're always being calm, professional, respectful. You just want to actually help. Now, maybe the client is trying to pressure you to change your findings. Maybe they disagree and they want you to reconsider. Now, you do not immediately say, oh yes, the customer's always right type of thing and think, yeah, we'll absolutely change it. You are an independent auditor. That is not what you do. Here's more things you just don't do. Now, the first thing is absolutely listen, understand their concern, really understand where it is that they're coming from. Make sure that, of course, it is definitely a disagreement. And then you need to stay firm on your reasons, but explain that to them professionally. Escalate immediately. Maybe somebody else can also help you to really explain it to them. Of course, if you are a junior, it does really help, and it's probably better if it comes from someone more senior where you can say, hey, I understand your concerns. Let me also just discuss this with someone else in the team. We want to make sure that we're getting to the right answer here. And then it is maintaining independence, remember the code of ethics, and of course, document everything and what have you learned. Now, things that can get more tricky are the questions as well around, having work-life balance and conflicts, because it absolutely can happen. I think as long as you're acknowledging the request, really getting all the details about it, always be open, be able to have those honest conversations. See if there are any alternatives or solutions before you just absolutely jump at it. I think just remember, you always want to be realistic about it. I know it's an interview and a question, but it is really testing how would you behave in real life when you're working at this firm. Acknowledge the reality of the situation. You just still want to show that you really do understand the priorities. If it's a crucial deadline, there's absolutely no alternatives. You are the only person that can do this. Speak to your family, your friends, and then come back to work and just see if this is really something you can do for your team. But then you absolutely don't want this happening again in the future. So see if there are ways that, things can be put in place to make sure that this hopefully doesn't happen again, and learn from it. Finally, let's go for a situation where you just disagree with the approach that your team are doing for a task. Maybe you think you know a better way to do something, or you just don't agree with it. How do you handle that? Don't do this. You don't want to come across as completely passive or also then completely arrogant and being someone that's always right either. You're in a professional services firm. You need to be professional. Step one is always understand the situation more, understand their approach. Now, you've got an alternative answer. Present it in a constructive way. Have you actually got experience of why your way is also a way that you think is probably better? That's something that needs to be shared as well. But absolutely, as a junior, if you don't have that understanding yet, at least you've really, given your point of view in that respectful way. And then you can learn from other people's expertise as well. So perhaps this is a time where you say, oh, actually, you don't have the full picture just yet. And maybe now you kind of understand it more. So you come to that decision about whose approach is being taken and you follow it through professionally. The decision's made. You're not going to keep, going back and forth on it. Then after the project, you can, of course, then reflect and learn. Was their approach actually better in the end? You absolutely would have learned something. So what is it? This will really help you with building your judgment in the future, which is really critical for audit. So for any of these answers, any situational answers, really just aim for no more than kind of 90 seconds in your answer. But it is really, honestly, like a 5-step framework that I'm kind of giving you here. And it's always the values and the code of ethics that they are testing. If I had to really kind of summarize what they're testing, It's professional ethics and independence, that open communication, escalation, problem solving, judgment for sure, self-awareness, and then team dynamics and just professionalism. So to answer these for step 1, it's always, really listen to the question that it is that they're asking you, because you need to kind of respond with that. So pause and assess for step 1. What's kind of really being asked here? What information do I need? What are those ethical, practical considerations that you need? Then step 2, always need to consider who's affected. You're always applying the professional standards, professional ethics, the firm's policy. You're always protecting the audit quality and independence. And then communicate, escalate appropriately. And finally, document it, follow it through, and you're just learning. Thinking it through in this kind of way hopefully makes you really think and act like a true professional. Now on the screen, I'm going to just really put some high-level common mistakes. We've touched on some of those already, but again, just pause here and just read it through and make sure that you don't do these. Now, hopefully at this stage in the video, you've got a real understanding of how to answer these types of questions, but just understanding is not enough. You need to practice. So remember, I do offer the mock interviews linked in the description, but you can absolutely practice on your own. Maybe you want to write out your answers, you want to time yourself, record yourself, and just practice with some different variations as well. But in that actual interview, make sure you're really listening to the situation and what's being asked. You absolutely can pause for a few seconds, have a sip of water. That's a good technique that I've mentioned in this video that might be able to help you. And if anything is unclear, of course you can ask. Now, if they do ask you a question and you've experienced this exact situation somehow, and the way that you acted is absolutely how it fits in this framework and follows the code of ethics, which hopefully, and it really should, then do feel free to kind of link it to that and maybe just wrap it up at the end and say, actually, I've had this real similar situation and that's how I handled it. It really just adds then that credibility. Honestly, they don't need to see or hear the perfect answer. They probably would just love to hear your thought process as well. So do feel free to share that. Now, please do not mess up on this very last question. Do you have any questions for me? Saying no, you've covered everything, it just means you've missed out on such a huge opportunity to leave a lasting impression. You literally have a chance to ask a partner who you've just interacted with, maybe for a half an hour, a question. Please just don't use it to ask questions about things you should already know. If you got to the end and said, oh, by the way, what do you actually do in audit? That could blow everything. Please don't also ask them about salary. Again, here's just a list. Don't do these things. Now, you can ask about the role, but in a more clever way. So, what does success for a first-year associate look like to you? Maybe it is about development. So what is their understanding of, how you can really gain sector experience? The firm's direction, maybe about the team that you might be working with. What's their favorite thing about it? To be honest, I absolutely love asking questions about them. What did they enjoy about the role? If you know that they've worked at the firm for a long time now, what is it that really makes them stay? Maybe what is it that they really enjoy about the work? But what's also a really good thing to do here is if you've listened and actively been engaging in conversations during the interview, they might have said something that was really interesting. And if you remember it and ask it at the end, that's a good way to really show that you have been engaged and are genuinely interested. Just have some backup questions. So when this does come up, you do just feel like, aha, I have something to say. You've watched all of this video, and if you did find it helpful, give me a like. Any comments, questions, drop them below. I am absolutely answering all of these. So just because you have watched this video, it does not mean you're going to get the offer. You need to practice. I cannot stress that enough. I offer mock interviews. The link is in the description. Record yourself, practice with yourself, your sister, your family, friends. The answer might sound perfect in your head, but when it comes out, it's all over the place. Please don't be that person that has memorized a block of text in their head for the perfect answer. But even tell me about yourself. You want it to sound natural, as if someone's just asked you and you can say, oh yes, X, Y, and Z. Not really just rehearsing this kind of script and you're unable to then make the eye contact. And it just seems like you just can't even just answer that question naturally. You want to be warm with your answers. You don't want to be stressed thinking, oh, what was it that I wanted to say? And that's why I always answer questions in bullet points and just practice. Sometimes your answers are so much longer than you ever need to, so just pick the key points from what you do remember from the bullet. Don't stress, it doesn't have to be perfect. And if you did enjoy this video, found it helpful, do watch my other video on the full interview process. It's from a few years ago now, but it covers more things than just what was in answering questions for this video. Now, good luck with your interview. I just know you're gonna smash it. Subscribe and tell me how you do.